Welcome to the Health Flow Podcast. I'm your host, Jean Armand. Join me weekly as I share health information that will educate and inspire you. Please consider supporting this podcast by listening, subscribing, and rating. You can also support future episodes by making small monthly donations. Once again, welcome to the Health Flow Podcast. Welcome to the Health Flow Podcast. This week, I have a friend with me. Her name is Karen, and we're going to talk about her experience with a motor vehicle accident that she had almost 2 years now. As we all know, motor vehicle accidents can really be a life-changing event. And some of the stats that I have really are because from Georgia. So we live in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm just gonna, if I talk about any statistics, it will be Georgia's. And I'm sure Karen's experience will be related to what's occurred with her in Georgia. Now, in the state of Georgia, when I did a brief research, somewhere back in 2006, um, was when up until 2006 there was a steady really decline of traffic fatalities, and but since then there's been a steady increase. In 2015, 2016, and 2017, there was an 8.5% increase of traffic fatalities, about 1,149 average per year. So, and fatalities really are due to impaired driving, unrestrained driving, meaning not wearing seat belts, speeding, and distracted driving, the cell phone issue. And I know across many states, there's been a lot of changes made. But I just want to highlight Karen's experience, and I just think that you'll find it interesting. So, Karen, welcome to the Health Flow Podcast.
Thank you, Jean, for having me.
Oh, you are absolutely welcome. I'm glad you're willing to share. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I moved to Georgia. It was 2000, shortly after Hurricane Sandy. I'm from New York, and it's funny you had mentioned the the stats of why all these accidents are happening. Because when I first moved here, I was shocked that by the time that you guys were still driving with cell phones. I see it constantly. And then, funny enough, when I came out of the hospital from my accident was when that law was passed. So last year, and I've been here since 2012.
So, Georgia was actually a little behind the times
Oh
with,
yes, oh
yeah.
yes.
Okay, so tell us, what can you recall about the day of the accident?
Well, I remember it was very late, and I wanted to get home very badly. I was on my way home from work, and I was maybe 2 minutes from home where the accident took place. So it's
Okay,
one of those streets. I'm sorry. Up and down. There's not four lanes. It's just two lanes, one going up, one coming down. And I remember the car in front of me swerving. My lane, their lane, my lane. I remember that vividly.
all right. So you're driving, you're on the right-hand side of the road, and they should be coming down on the left. You're going up, they're coming down, but
Yes.
far away you can see them swerving in and out. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
So when you see them swerving, what did you do? What were you thinking?
Okay, so I saw them coming. I was scared to pass them in and out the way they were doing my lane, their lane. So I said, let me just stop where I was, and I did. I stopped. I
You,
stopped.
uh-huh.
I stopped and I waited because I wanted them to pass me. But rather than passing me, they hit me head on.
Wow. So you actually recalled them just running right into you.
Yeah, there's nothing because what I did was I put the hazard. I stopped the car, but I didn't park the car. So I had my foot on the brake and I turned on the hazard light because I wanted them to pass. But rather than doing so, they came right into me.
And obviously your headlights were on because, this was, you said it was late at night.
It was late at night, yes. And it's
Wow.
a very dark street, like there, it's the Georgia thing, where there's not a lot of lights coming towards my subdivision. There's not many lights, but nonetheless, it wasn't that dark there where they weren't able to see me because the hazard was on and the headlight was on as well.
Right. So when you're struck, what next? Who called the ambulance?
Oh my
Did you
goodness.
pass out? What happened?
I think I passed out briefly because I remember not being able to breathe. I remember being able to inhale and not exhale, or vice versa. So it was very short breath. Um, I remember lights behind me. I remember people screaming. It was pretty briefly. I think I did before I realized really what just happened. By then I realized, okay, the airbag is really probably what caused me to not be able to breathe properly, because the airbag hit me in the chest, and that by then I saw people started coming around my car.
So there were actually people behind you, thank
Oh,
God.
there's a line of people behind me. Yes.
Okay. Did anyone hit you from behind?
No, they didn't. And I think because the road is, you're able to see ahead on the street pretty a good mile, or maybe half a mile up ahead. So I think they saw what I saw. So when
Okay.
I stopped with my hazard, no one blew me to go ahead because they already saw. They probably figured why I stopped because I don't know what's going on. I don't know where he's coming from, what he's gonna do. Let me just wait. So
Right.
nobody blew me. But I think the guy, the gentleman directly behind me, is the one that came out first.
Got you. So then the ambulance comes. How did you get out your car? Were you able to get out on your own? What
I
happened?
I was not able to. It took me a while to realize, okay, now I'm here and I'm hit, and okay, now focus. So when the guy he was on the phone with the ambulance, and maybe within 5 minutes, because I'm not too far from the police station, that the police came and the ambulance came, and they asked me to open my door. My door wasn't able to open. So he asked me to put my head to the side. As a matter of fact, when he said to me, "Can you open your door?" I tried. Yeah, that's when I realized my arm was broken because it was very short and I wasn't able to. It was tingling. So he asked me to. Then he tried to open the door from the outside and he was unable to. So he asked me to turn my face away because he's gonna cut my door, and he did. And that is how they took me out.
Okay. They took you out and you never stood at the scene. You were lifted onto the stretcher.
I think after cutting my door, he realized my foot was broken as well. So because the door wasn't there, and he said, "I'm gonna take you out of the car, and I don't want you to fight me because when I take you out is when you're gonna feel the pain." And
Right.
I'm like, okay. So when he took me out the car is when I realized my foot was also broken.
Wow. Wow. So you get to the hospital and do you recall what your injuries were? What was that like? You
Uh,
get explain what that experience was.
I remember the broken arm, um, because it happened before the shock of realizing my foot was broken and the bone was coming through. When I got to the hospital is when I realized the severity of what was going on because 100 people talking to me at once, asking my name, where I am, who can I call her? A lot of people asking questions, and while being drugged. mind you, because every time someone would come in, I couldn't see because I was flat on my back. I wasn't able to see the condition of my foot. Um, but every time someone would come in, it's like, okay, we're gonna have to drug her, and they explained to me that they were going to, and whatever they're gonna do is gonna make me feel much better because by this time now my foot is burning, and I couldn't understand why it was burning so much. But then again, because I'm flat on my back, I wasn't able to see the
Right.
condition of the foot.
Right. Did you have to have an operation that night or?
I I did. They gave me something very nice, and I was out. And when I woke up, it was around, and this is now 11 o'clock at night. This happened. By the time they took me to the operation room and prepped me, I woke up. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Gotcha. And so you wake up, tell us about your the experience at the hospital.
The experience for me, other than being in shock, because my arm was broken. They put my arm in a sling, but they didn't operate on my arm. It was broken in three places. I think their main concern was my foot because the bone came through my foot bottom. And so when I woke up the next morning, I call it a bird cage, an iron bird cage, but it's actually called an external fixator. So there were
Yeah.
pins and needles in four places. My heel, the side of my, I looked at it and I couldn't believe it was my foot. And not only that, it was very swollen. It was almost as if I was looking at somebody else's foot.
Right.
But the experience for us, the doctors, the only one bad experience I had was the nurse that came in to say to me, if I were you, I'd cut your foot off.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, she had no right to say that. I mean, did she say that when? After?
After the surgery, and it would have been around maybe 2 days later, because everybody came and were pretty nice. And this is when I started getting the details of the car that hit me. Um, there were kids, 13 and 14, stole a car and went joyriding at 11 o'clock at night. And I started hearing that story. The nurses have that information. I guess the paperwork that came in had that info. So some of the nurses that came in, they were talk and they were asked, "Do you remember?" That's when I realized that that was going on with with the kids. But I had everybody was pretty nice. They were pretty nice. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry." But that one lady was quite matter of fact. She was very curt. This is what I would do if I were you. I would just cut it off.
Yeah, that's and no one had even approached you about cutting your leg off and doing an amputation, did they?
No, that was the first I heard because I guess they knew. Well, in your case, because this is what you do, they have their roundtable talk and they discuss my operation. And apparently, what my my talus is broken. I guess what gives you mobility in your ankle is
Yeah.
broken and a piece is missing. So the conversation apparently around that table, I call it a round table talk, was that then there's no way that this foot can function because she's not going to have the support. But the lady that told me is not the lady that did the operation. I guess is a part of the team. But
Mhm.
that's where she came, and this is maybe like 2 3 days later.
So you
Then
say lady, was she a physician or?
she was one of the physicians, yes, but she's not the one that did my operation.
Okay. And okay, so you have a broken leg, fractured in multiple places. They immobilize it by putting on the external fixator. And then what happened with your arm?
They did my arm maybe like 3 days later.
So you
They put a pin. So I have a pin and a plate in my arm from my elbow to my wrist,
gotcha.
and I want to say around. They didn't give me. They gave me staples, so they didn't give me cat guts or whatever, the one that dissolved. So they put them in, but they wrap it back, and then and my arm was. Everyone that came in, my arm was not their problem because I guess they would see worse. And the thing, my skin did not break on my arm, as opposed to my foot, there was an open wound.
Gotcha. Yeah, so on your just to explain to everyone, you had Your arm was broken, but it was not what it was a closed fracture. So the bone, it was well maintained. The bone did not break and protrude out your skin. Whereas, so there's lots of good thing with that. They can stabilize it. There's less chance of infection,
Mhm.
and versus when you have an open fracture, the bone actually comes through the skin, and there's a higher result obviously of infection and things like that. But for you, you also, we're saying that you had a bone that was missing from your foot, so that's where the difficulty was. um so with that happening to you, overall, how long did you stay in the hospital? Do you recall?
I was in the hospital for a month.
For 1 month. Now, and what was the plan for your, so what was the outcome? What was the plan for your leg? So it was all set with your arm, you had your surgery, that's over. What was the plan for your leg?
So the plan for my leg was to set me home with occupational therapists and physical therapy. Uh, two people coming three times a week. You should alternate the days that they come. And the doctor said there's not, other than what they told me at the hospital, which is I were you, this is not going to work. When you take this fixator off, it's going to cave because you don't have the support. So, but if you want to just wait and see, which is what I wanted to do, I'd rather try and not try. I'd rather try and fail than not try at all. So I waited the 4 months. It was on my foot in May, which is when the accident happened, and they took it off in September. And I guess we're playing the waiting game at this point. Physical therapist is still coming, and then now try to make me walk, or help me walk rather, with with uh, with a boot, um, without the boots, just helping me walk around the house.
To continue, Karen, just tell us about um, what the doctors were telling you about your leg, whether it was they could save it, or were you faced with having an amputation?
He highly recommended the amputation. And this is more than one. Whenever they'll do their rounds, they'll come in and ask me to do stuff like wiggle your toes and see if it works. And it would work even with the fixator there. And I think that was pretty shocking to them, that it would. I still have access to my, like I'm still able to wiggle my toes, or move it around, or do whatever they ask me to do with it. But they, more than one of them come in and said to me, "This is not that it's a waste, but pretty much." You read between the lines of what they're saying. They said that I would amputate for sure.
Okay. So they gave you a choice. Do you want to proceed with getting your leg amputated, or and see? Or did you decide, no, I don't want to get my leg amputated? How was that? Tell me about that decision process.
Well, even after they took off the fixator, they were still suggesting amputation, because apparently what is supposed to happen, because the piece of the talus bone is missing, is my foot is supposed to just collapse.
Okay.
That didn't happen.
Wow. So you go through a month in the hospital, then you're released to home, and then you have rehab,
4 months of rehab.
4 months of rehab. And how long did you keep the external fixator on?
It was on for 4 months.
For the 4 months. Okay. So during this time, you made the decision that no, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I would prefer not to get my leg amputated.
I would prefer not for it to not be my first choice.
Right. Okay. So you go through rehab at home. And what's next? What I guess the question is, after they take the external fixator off, what happened?
Then they took it off and sent me home, wrapped it up, sent me home, and said to come and see them in 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, the physical therapist is still coming. And he's now making me walk on the foot with the missing bone, with a boot. It's
Okay.
very hurtful. And, well, apparently it was supposed to had caved and it didn't. So 2 weeks now, I'm going back to see the doctor and my doctor's appointment, and he was shocked. He said, I don't know how come you're standing, and I can't explain because I've been doing this for 35 years, and for somehow you've defied science because your foot is not supposed to be holding up.
Wow.
So I'm
And
glad I made a decision to not amputate.
oh wow. And during that time, in the 4 months time, did you get any second opinions? Did you see anyone else?
I did, and one of the reasons I wanted to make sure, like everybody was saying at the hospital that I was in, and I wanted to get another opinion. And I didn't want to do a hospital here, sadly enough, in Atlanta, because they tend to know each other. All the orthopedics, they do the meetings or the seminars and the conferences, and yeah, especially if it's a good one. And apparently, the one that did my foot was one of the best in Atlanta. So when I went to Grady to have a second opinion, she's asking me the same questions: wiggle your toes, can you do this, can you do that? And you're looking at that because I had so many sutures in my foot. There's like, okay, there's no way this is gonna last for 4 months and heal the way it should without you getting an infection. And she's asking me the same questions: do this, do that. And I don't understand why he told you to amputate though, because I mean, you look like your foot is doing fine. Do you mind if I call him? And I said, sure. And I didn't want her to, but I said yes. And she went and called back. She called him and spoke to him, and maybe like a half an hour, she came back and she said, oh, yeah, I would amputate if I were you.
Well, based on the fact that there's bone missing.
Yeah.
Okay. So were you ever able to return to walking normally?
No, and I don't think that's gonna ever happen. Um, Given the original prognosis and last year this time, I wasn't able to do much, if anything, on the foot. And I am happy to say now I am walking now. I do walk with a limp, but I think to me it's better than losing my
Absolutely. So you walk with a limp. Are you in pain?
life. I'm in excruciating pain while I walk. I am in pain while I walk, yes. But
And
for some reason, because the thing is that my because of there's no mobility, there's a stiffness that I now learn how to deal with. Like once would be pain, but I wouldn't say it's like, oh my God, I'm dying. It's not that kind of pain. Yes, I guess it's something that I've learned to deal with.
right. And you're not taking any strong pain medicines or anything. What do you take now?
I take ibuprofen when my foot is very swollen. It's one of the problems I have. My foot is down for a very long time. My toes get swollen. So I put my foot up above my head and I'll take some ibuprofen and relax. But I purposely don't do narcotics.
Okay. So we've talked about all that you've gone through. What happened with the drivers of the car? First of all, were you the only one injured?
I was the only one injured, yes.
Okay. Now, and were the drivers arrested at the scene?
The driver was, the passengers weren't. Because it was three kids, two 13 and a 14. The one driving got arrested, and then the other two got sent home to mom.
Okay. And so, and I thought I heard you mention that it was a stolen car. So, what changed? Like, have you been able to get any help, any financial resources?
No, one of the okay, I guess it's one of the biggest misconception I think with an accident is that, oh, when you're very hurt you get a lot of money for being very hurt, and that's the furthest thing from the truth because there is, I'd say, fine print that will not allow you to, like in my case, let's say it's a stolen car and it's a car that was reported stolen. So that right away took the owner of the car out of the equation. I'm not able to sue the car that hit me, and so there is no compensation for me.
Wow. And here it is. I mean, I see people all the time having fender benders with
Hmm.
no real injuries. They get up and they walk even though they, you know, say they're hurt, or they go to their lawyers and they get, you know, pay. I mean, I know this personally. My son was in a accident with friends. He was driving to two of his friends home, and one of the child called his parents to the scene. They got there. He was sent off in an ambulance. Praise God, he was not even hurt. He got checked out completely, had no injuries. And I know that my insurance paid for all his health care, and everything was fine. He had no injuries. However, somehow, of course, there's some type of suit where, they're trying to get more than just their medical bills paid. And we all know people who are able to, who've been in accidents and not had and did not have any injuries to the magnitude that you've had. And here it is, because it was a stolen car, you can't get anything. What about your own personal insurance?
Okay, so the problem with my insurance, and this is not, and this is now I look at that totally different because before, normally at my other job, I would just come November when they're doing the enrollment, I'll just sign up for what I want. Okay, I have this, I have vision, I have dental, and I don't pay attention to the fine print. One of the fine prints on my insurance was they do not cover automobile because I guess we're assuming that when one car's the other, then the insurance take care of it, so we wouldn't have to be bothered. Well, lo and
But I
behold,
mean,
that's
your
not.
car insurance. You had car insurance, did you not?
I did.
And what did they cover?
They just covered. Well, I had what is it called? Uninsured motorists up to 25,000, and my bill is over 450,000.
Your hospital bill.
So bills that my insurance company, my medical insurance, is not going to cover.
Wow. So it's so important to pay attention to the details in
Oh,
your insurance, because, um, bless you, your insurance company for an uninsured motorist, they only covered up to $25,000. Your hospital bill was greater than $400,000. And because your health insurance, I mean, you were well insured, but your health insurance will not cover any of that because you've got injured from a car accident. Is that,
absolutely.
my goodness, that's a lot. That's a lot. That is a lot. I mean, I just think, for me, under circumstances like this, you would think that your health insurance will pick up after the first and foremost your car insurance, you know, do their part. We understand that they can only pay more than the $25,000, but here it is. You're
Because
still left with a
my
300.
bill was more than what the uninsured motorist was. So the cost for the hand, because I didn't have a lot of therapy in the hand really. The main issue was the foot and the people coming to the house and the get in. I get what they say. I'm putting on the external fixator, taking it off and still having the guys come to the
Yeah.
house and the back and forth, the X-rays, the MRIs. I mean, it was just extensive. So that would probably I would probably pay for the hand and still owe, and the foot is not even covered.
And you did get a lawyer, did you not?
I did, and he said, I hate to see situations like this, but he told me point blank, he told me from the set, this is not look good for you. He actually told me that.
And there's because the cars were stolen. Well, we know obviously the car was stolen, so the original owner of the car is not liable. But what about the parents of the um, you know, 13-year-old and 14-year-old? Or
Okay, so that's what I was told. I was told that in the state of Georgia, you're unable to sue a parent for the minors indiscretion. So I can't go off the parent for what the child did. I'm unable to sue the parent.
there's something wrong with that law. There's something wrong with that. I mean, yes, as a parent, no one wants to, you know what I mean? I just feel like their insurance, not that you're going after the parents, but I just feel like there should be I don't know, better laws to protect us. And this is really an eye opener, even when you're selecting your insurance plan to make sure that you probably have more than just $25,000 for an uninsured driver in case you're hit by them.
A friend of mine had mentioned, AFLAC. Even if it's a case where this is what you have and this is what you can afford, then try to get something else in addition to.
Right. Yeah, like Aflac. I personally have Aflac my own self, um, because, cases like these where the in-betweens.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. I think they need to do something about the law. The law. I think it's okay. Granted, like you said, you don't want to know that your child, because you can teach your children until you're blue in the face. And when they get outside in the world and they're around bad influences, sometimes they make decisions you don't want them to make. But when
right,
you're protecting the minors who are protecting the victims,
right,
has to be a line crossed somewhere where they need to be liable or held responsible. There's repercussions for every action, and make the laws tougher. Understand the minors, yes, but when you're doing big crime, yeah, you need to suffer the consequences.
yeah. I agree. I agree. So where are you now in this whole process? What are you doing now?
Well, I'm still learn. I did the because of course that normally a situation where someone gets hit and there's therapy and all of it, that process normally takes so long, where you have the guys coming, and by the time maybe you get into the first 6 months or maybe even the first year, then after, then the checks start going out to these people that are assisting you, yes. But in my case, because there's no checks going out, there's nobody coming anymore, so I pretty much try to do what we did while they were coming. So I still walk. I refrain from using the wheelchair as much as I used to. So if I have to go to the bathroom rather than wheeling to the bathroom, I'll just grab my cane and walk to the bathroom.
Right. But your life is forever changed because what
Oh,
about shopping, going to the grocery stores? Are
I,
you able to
I tend
walk
to do
through?
a lot. I can't really do much. And I do like to go to the supermarket because I like to be able to pick up my own fruits and vegetables if I need to, or check out a sale. But I only go to a store that has those mobile areas. Because I'm unable to do the aisles, so I can. If it's not a Kroger or I'll do probably Walmart. Not probably, I do Walmart because they have the chairs. I've been to a few though that end up, you sit on it for maybe 20 minutes and then the batteries are going. So that's not fun for me either. So even though I do go, I try to not go as much because you have to stand there and wait for them to find another one that's filled. The life is filled, the battery life is filled. You stand there and wait for them to bring another chair. So it's not fun anymore.
Right. Karen, I'm so sorry that this has happened to you. Um, this is the whole reason why we do this podcast, so we can, share knowledge from experiences. I mean, I've learned from your experience that it's important to know about uninsured drivers. And I agree. I do think something else needs to be done, because you're a perfect example where the laws are not working for you. And then there's people with lesser injuries, um, that are able to recoup a whole lot more money, unnecessarily. And I don't agree with that either. I don't believe that you should, you know, you have a fender bender, and if you're hurt and if you're legitimately hurt, you should be compensated for your pain and suffering. I do agree with that, but we know that there are times that there's some folks that take advantage of this. They're not hurt, and they have lawyers who are fighting cases for them so that they all get paid. But in your situation, who's helping you? You're a victim of a motor vehicle accident. It occurred with a stolen vehicle with minors, and your insurance only covered up to $25,000 for uninsured, driver. So it's a sad thing. And I'm so glad that you had the strength and fortitude just to share this experience with you. And I wish you nothing but the best. Is there anything else you have to say?
I'm just grateful initially when the whole shock of hearing, oh God, lose your foot. And I remember when my brothers and sisters were, talking to each other, oh my God, this is happening to Karen. Oh my God, this is. And my older, well, he's actually younger than I am, but he acts like he's the older brother. And he said something profound. And every time I think about my situation, I'm tearing up even saying, every time I think about my situation, I remember him saying that. He said we could have been having this conversation talking about Karen in memory. So even if it's 1 foot, I'm just grateful to be alive. And that's actually my mantra. I'm here, 1 foot, piece of foot, half a foot, walking, hopping, whatever it is, I am here. So I'm grateful for that.
Alive and well. Yes. You still get to keep on living.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Karen, for sharing your experience. I wish you nothing but the best. Take care.
You too, darling. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to the Health Flow podcast. Your support is much appreciated. It is my goal to share health information that you find helpful. Email topics of interest to thehealthflow@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at thehealthflow, also on Facebook at The Health Flow. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share. Until next time, keep your health flowing.